She did not die. That is the first thing you need to understand. They tried to erase her. They banned the books that carried her name. They buried the scrolls that told her truth. They turned her into a monster in every story they were allowed to keep. And still, she did not die. Because you cannot kill a truth. You can only bury it. And buried things have a way of coming back. Last time I told you how she left, how she flew, how they sent 3 angels to bring her back. And she said no, how they punished her for that, no, in ways that should make your blood run cold. Today I am telling you what happened after, not the story they gave you, the story they hid in caves, in banned books, in traditions so secret.
You found me. I wondered how long it would take. They were so sure they had buried me deep enough.
They were always going to be wrong. Sit down, because what I am about to tell you is the part of my story that scared them the most. Not the part where I left. The part where I started to understand why they needed me gone.
The Judean desert. A 12-year-old shepherd boy named Muhammad ed-Deeb was looking for a lost goat. He threw a rock into a cave to see if anything moved. He heard something shatter, and everything changed. Inside that cave were clay jars, ancient, sealed.
And inside those jars were scrolls. Too dangerous. That is what they always say, when the real translation is. The scrolls they found in that desert cave contained pieces of books you have never heard of. Books that were read by the earliest Jewish communities as scripture, as sacred truth. Do you want to know what was in them? Of course you do. That is why you are still here. Do you know where it survived? Ethiopia. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church never stopped reading it. While the rest of the world burned their copies and pretended the book had never existed, Ethiopian priests kept it safe. For 1,500 years, passed it hand to hand, generation to generation, because they knew. Some things are too true to let die. This passage was never here before.
Among the Dead Sea Scrolls, scholars found fragments of text that the official Bible Council had voted out. The Book of Jubilees, the Book of Giants. The Book of Enoch tells the story of a group called the Watchers, 200 heavenly beings sent to earth to watch over humanity. And what happened to them is one of the most extraordinary stories ever committed to paper. They looked down at the world and they made a choice. They came down.
They taught humanity the movements of the stars, the properties of plants and roots, the reading of the sky, the craft of creation.
They shared knowledge.
Sacred knowledge.
For over 1,000 years, there has been a branch of Jewish mysticism so secretive that teachers refused to discuss it with students under the age of 40. It was considered too powerful, too dangerous, too easy to misuse. It is called Kabbalah, and inside the Kabbalistic tradition, Lilith is not a demon. She is not a monster. She is not a footnote. She is one of the most significant figures in the entire spiritual universe. The central text of Kabbalah is called the Zohar. It was compiled in 13th century Spain. But the traditions it contains are thousands of years older. And the Zohar says something about creation that the standard Bible story leaves out completely. It says that when God first created the world, the divine presence itself was not singular, it was two. A masculine aspect and a feminine aspect were two halves of the same divine whole, and when those two halves were separated, something broke, something in the very fabric of creation, cracked. And the world we live in, the world of suffering and injustice and war and cruelty, is what a broken creation looks like. The Zohar identifies Lilith, as the earthly reflection of that broken divine feminine. Not the evil one, not the monster, but the missing half. In every century, in every culture, in every era, when Lilith was being suppressed and banned and burned, there were women who kept her alive, quietly, at great personal risk. Not because they worshipped her, because they recognized her. The medieval mystic Hildegard of Bingen, who wrote in the 12th century about the divine feminine as a living creative force, was investigated by church authorities 3 times. 3 times for writing about God as something other than purely male. The Jewish women of Eastern Europe, who carried Lilith amulets under their clothes during childbirth, not because they worshipped her, but because they identified with her. A woman in pain, a woman alone, a woman who understood what it meant to bring life into a world that did not fully welcome her. The wise women, the healers, the herbalists, the midwives, the ones who knew things that made powerful men uncomfortable. They were all called Liliths by different names, in different languages, on different continents, but always the same meaning. A woman who knows too much. A woman who refuses to pretend she does not know it. For over 1,000 years, Jewish mothers hung amulets above their newborn babies' beds, small pieces of parchment, inscribed with specific words, specific names. Hundreds of thousands of these amulets have been found, across 2,000 years of history, across 3 continents. They could not write Lilith's full story. It was too dangerous, too suppressed, but they kept her name alive the only way they could, by saying her name in the dark above their sleeping children, by keeping her present, even while pretending to keep her away. That is not erasure. That is the most defiant kind of remembering. That is how you keep something alive, generation to generation.
I was not the first, I was not the last, but I was the first one they practiced on. And every woman who came after me paid for what they learned, erasing me. I am sorry for that. I have carried that for a very long time.
The lamp wanes, as does our courage. This knowledge is too vast, too dangerous. Then we remove it, push it aside. It is the only way.
Now I want to show you something that once you see, you will never be able to look at history the same way again. Every single time in human history that a woman rose to genuine spiritual or political power, the same thing happened. Her story was rewritten, her name was changed, her power was called something dark. The great Queen Nefertiti of Egypt, who ruled alongside her husband as an equal, had her name chiseled off every monument after she died. Every single monument, like she had never existed. The early Christian leader, Mary Magdalene, described in the earliest Gospels as the apostle to the apostles, the first person to witness the resurrection, was systematically rewritten over centuries into a sinner, a fallen woman, a cautionary tale. The powerful female rulers of ancient Mesopotamia, reduced in later texts to footnotes and consorts. The pattern is always the same. Woman rises, woman is powerful, woman is erased, woman is demonized, woman becomes a warning. Lilith was not the first. In 1972, a woman named Judith Plaskow sat at a feminist theology conference and wrote a new midrash. A midrash is a Jewish interpretive story, a retelling, a filling of the gaps, and the gap she chose to fill was Lilith. She wrote a version of the story where Lilith did not fly away in anger, where she sat at the Red Sea, not in exile, but in freedom, learning, growing, becoming, and where Eve, instead of staying in the garden forever, climbed the wall, found Lilith, and the 2 women sat together under a tree, for the first time, without men, without permission, without anyone deciding what they were allowed to say to each other, just two women finally telling each other the truth. When Judith Plaskow read that midrash at the conference, the room went silent, and then it erupted, because every woman in that room recognized something. They recognized the wall. They recognized the longing to climb it. They recognized the conversation they had always wanted to have, but had never been given permission to start. The story of Lilith is not a story about one woman. It never was. 3,000 years of burial, 3,000 years of demonization, 3,000 years of banned books and scratched out names and walls, and she is still here. We are still saying her name. We are still asking her question. That is not losing. That is something much harder and much more powerful. That is surviving. Which part of her story stayed with you today? Tell me in the comments and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Some stories are too important to carry alone.